Hi everybody. What a week, huh? What a week. What a couple of weeks, really. It's so good to be here. Hi everybody. Good. Thanks for joining me. So, uh, Susan Collins is a Republican. You know, lest we ever forget, she is a Republican, and you know, that's that. Um, so anyway, hi to everybody in the chat. Hi, Larry. Yes. As usual, I'm going to be responding to some pre-submitted questions from patrons on Patreon for the first couple of minutes. So if you're in the live chat, oh, hi, Alice. If you're in the live chat and you have questions, just hold on to them for a few minutes. I'll come back to the live chat after I get through the patron questions, and we can have some interaction then. But first, let's see what my wonderful Patreon patrons have been asking about this time. We'll start with a question from Tom McDonald, who is in the chat. Hi, Tom. Good to see you. Tom says, if Mueller or his successor if Trump fires Mueller, gets close enough to reporting that Trump has definitely committed impeachable offenses that even a significant number of Republicans can't ignore, which country do you think he will invade? I won't say may invade, only because I think Trump will do literally anything, sacrifice literally anyone to stay in power. I think he has surrounded himself with Warhawks, Bolton, to prepare the ground for exactly that situation. If you don't think he would do that, explain why you think he wouldn't. Oh, no, I think you're right, Tom. I think he would definitely do that. And I think you predicted my my answer. You sort of telegraphed my answer to the question in your question when you mentioned Bolton. I think it's going to be Iran. I think if this administration trumps up a war, pun not intended, but appropriate, it'll be against Iran. I think they're laying the foundation for that on an almost daily basis. We're being incredibly aggressive in our rhetoric toward Iran, calling Iran a rogue state, and all the things they can say about. I mean, Iran obviously is not a model country in any way, but it is a little. It's interesting to hear officials of the Trump administration declare Iran a rogue state while at the same time they are rejecting the authority of the International Criminal Court and basically thumbing their nose at the whole idea of international law in order to just do whatever they want. And then they declare another country, albeit a very, very troubled, concerning place, as a rogue state. So that's, but it shouldn't surprise you, and it doesn't surprise me. But yeah, if they're going to invade anywhere to try and cover their asses, I think it'll be Iran. And I think, unfortunately, they are already putting in that groundwork. So next question is from Dr. Babylon. Hi, Dr. Babylon. I don't know. I didn't see you in the chat, but maybe you're there and I just missed you. Anyway, thanks for asking the question. Thanks for being a patron. Dr. Babylon says, Steve, did you know that Steve Bannon believes that American history turns on a repeating set of 4 circa 20-year stages in an approximately 80-year cycle, and that based on this model, he is pinning his hopes for the future on Generation Z being much more conservative than millennials? This unscientific cyclical theory, developed by William Strauss and Neil Howe, is taken seriously by way too many people, and it gives conservatives hope that we're about to return to the social conservatism of the 1940s and 50s. This view of Gen Z as the great conservative hope has been around for years, but the evidence supporting this has always been pretty flimsy, in my opinion. Children born 2007 or later are called Gen Z plus and are the first minority white generation in American history. Yeah, you're right. I don't put a lot of stock in that theory. I've heard that before. I wasn't aware that that Bannon is a proponent of it, because I don't really pay much attention to anything Steve Bannon has to say. But it doesn't really surprise me. It's the kind of sort of right-wing Pollyanna thinking of, we're actually we're on the right side of history, that sort of thing. That's sort of trying to take an obvious truth and flip it and say, no, actually, this is true, and it's going to work in our benefit. I think that's what it is. Oh, history works in cycles, and eventually it's going to cycle back around, and things are going to be more conservative than ever. It ebbs and flows. I mean, in a very informal sense, I think there are cycles in history. I think there is progress, and then there are backlashes. You know, I think that is probably true. Again, in a very general sense, not in a way that I would think is predictable in anything other than the most vague degree. But the whole, well, it runs on rotating 20-year cycles in an 80-year pattern. I don't see any evidence that that is actually true. I don't see any evidence right now that suggests that the upcoming generation, the generation of people who are not yet reaching adulthood or are just beginning to reach adulthood, I don't see any evidence to suggest that they're going to be incredibly conservative or more conservative than their parents or their grandparents. I think that's wishful thinking on the part of people like Bannon, and I think that's just it's an attempt to try and mobilize the conservative base that exists right now. You know, to say, oh, just hang in there and keep voting and keep supporting our candidates because eventually, you know, your grandkids are going to take over and they're going to be more conservative than you are and they're going to put all of this stuff right. I mean, it's more benign, I guess, than just outright race baiting and misogyny and xenophobia. I mean, if the only thing conservatives, if the only lie conservatives told their voting base was hang in there, your kids are going to be more conservative than you are, and they left all the bigoted stuff and the fear mongering stuff out, I guess that would be an improvement, at least in terms of rhetoric or in terms of you know, temperament or the state of politics. But no, I don't see any reason to think it's true at all. I think it's just Republican conservative wishful thinking, and part of this delusion that their way is inherently the right way, and that their policies and their goals for society and the way they want to set everything up is the natural way, and having things go that way is just inevitable. That's sort of, you know, a popular conservative idea, and I think it's another expression of that. Next up, Natalie Carr says, I've gotten into your Ensign's Logs podcast, and while I'm generally happy with them, Baby's arc is getting disturbingly close to anti-choice rhetoric. For example, trying to guilt Ensign Riker out of divesting himself of the creature with, but you might kill a sentient being. Is this a deliberate choice? Will this be resolved in future episodes? This is a really good question, Natalie, and I'm glad you asked this. I certainly didn't, and I'm pretty sure Jason did not intentionally intend. There's an English student for you. Did not intend for the baby arc in Ensign's Log to be any kind of an abortion metaphor, but I definitely see how it can be read that way. And I had that thought not in the last episode we recorded, but one of the last couple of episodes we recorded. I had the thought that it feels a little bit like it could be taken as a commentary on abortion, and that is not the intention. And I am pro-choice. I am pro abortion rights. I would not want to deliver the message that you know, women contemplating getting abortions shouldn't do it because they're killing a sentient being or anything of the sort. But I see how it can be read that way. So I don't know. The baby storyline will be wrapped up at some point. Like, it's not going to just go on forever. But yeah, I don't know. The only thing I can say that might differentiate it from you know, an anti-choice storyline, an anti-choice allegory, would be that Baby is sort of he is sentient. We've gone to great pains to establish that he is a completely separate being, whereas I don't think you would argue that that a fetus still in an early stage of development, as most fetuses are when they're aborted, would you know, meet that threshold. But then again, you know, there's another side of that where you could say, well, but, you know, he is an appendage. He is dependent on Ensign Riker's body for survival. You know, you could draw some parallels there. So I don't know. You're right. We did not intend for it to go that way. We do not intend it to be a abortion allegory or a commentary on that. But as sometimes happen, these things sort of sneak in and can be read in ways that are not unreasonable, but were not the intention of the creator. So all I can say is that was not our intention, and that's not a message we are meaning to send. And I think we are going to be, I know I personally in my performance and whatever I can bring to Riker for the rest of the story, I will try to be mindful of that and try not to give that impression. You know, I think the idea of it seems kind of obvious when you point it out and you look back on it. The whole idea was, at least from where I sit, was that it was an opportunity to show that Riker places his own interests ahead of the interests of someone else when it suits him. You know, when it becomes obvious that Baby is his own person, Riker refuses to acknowledge it or downplay it because it's inconvenient for him. And he sticks to that even when it becomes obvious that that's no longer really a tenable position. And now that I think about it that way, it's obvious how that can be read as an abortion allegory, because that is an argument that a lot of anti-abortion people make. And I don't think that's a fair argument to make about pregnant people saying, oh, you're just being selfish. You don't care about the baby. You just care about yourself. So I mean, I see how it can be read that way. I promise you that was not our intention. But I now that we're aware of it, I think I will definitely have that in mind as we move forward. And we do have a resolution in mind for the storyline. I'm not sure exactly how many episodes it'll be until it's resolved. We're starting to put in the building blocks right now for that resolution. But yeah, I will have to keep that in mind as far as how it plays to other people, despite whatever our intentions are. We need to be mindful of how it plays to people listening who aren't reading our minds and who are just watching or listening to what we're doing and taking what is actually not an unreasonable reading from it at all, although it is certainly not what we intended. But yeah, that's a really good question, something that we really need to think about as we move forward with that storyline in the show. Next is from Some Random Geek. Some Random Geek says, when Tom McDonald mentions the term Warhawk in his question, that got me thinking. In my opinion, there are a lot of Warhawks in American politics, period. Excuse me, hit a frog in my throat. In my opinion, there are a lot of Warhawks in American politics, period. That is one thing I kind of wish I brought up in the Patreon hangout. We only have an hour with you, so it's fine. Democrats and Republicans are warhawkish, some more than others from what I see. Every president from Bill Clinton onward was or are hawkish. Hillary would have been hawkish for sure. That is why I will say that Democrats and Republicans are the same in regards to foreign policy. Even if there is an anti-war politician that gets in the White House, the Pentagon and the state will inform the president about the entire history of the U.S., past and present involvement in other countries, training them in a way about how to deal with the world and other countries for the interests of America, capitalist America, and because of that, I have the problem with the institution, and I don't believe it can be reformed away in terms of capitalism and foreign policy and involvement, which is part of why I'm a revolutionist. Thoughts? Again, my question involves revolutionist politics and is challenging your position and views of the world. Oh boy, I wonder how interesting the live chat will be. Hello, future Ask Away live chat participants, the Shivesies. Yeah, is that what we're calling you? You don't need to call yourselves that. The Shivesies? That seems a little, diminutive, a little reductive. I actually, I agree with a lot of what you have to say there, Geek. It is a shame that even if someone is elected to office, like Obama, who is at least professed to be, if not anti-war, at least ran on an idea of anyway, at least ran on a concept of ending the wars that we were currently involved in. And then once he gets into office, you sort of, it dawns on you like, oh, he's actually not going to do all that much, and one of the great the great sort of scars, I think, on the Obama presidency is the foreign policy as it relates to war. Because, yeah, I mean, I think Obama probably handled the wars better than Bush did, or better than a Republican would have, but he also increased the number of drone strikes. He wound down the wars in Iraq and Afghanistan, but we are still invested in those areas, and we are still involving ourselves in the affairs of other countries in ways that we probably shouldn't be, and that aren't justified. And I think you're right. There is an institution in the State Department and in the Defense Department, and it reaches itself into all corners of our culture that kind of views war as a positive thing. And when people say, you know, I love when military people, when high-ranking like generals in the military, they say, oh, war is a terrible thing. War is the worst thing in the world. And yet they serve the interests of war over and over and over again in their professional lives. It doesn't really, it's a vast difference between words and action when it comes to our attitude toward war. We pay lip service to how horrible war is and how, oh, it should be only the last resort and all of this stuff. And yet we are so pro-war in almost every way that it kind of shows those sentiments to not be sincere. And yeah, in that kind of environment, it is difficult to see how even an avowedly anti-war president could ever conduct a truly anti-war administration when your tools that you inherit are the State Department and the Defense Department that have been oriented for centuries toward war. Like, that's what they exist for. The State Department supposedly you know, is meant to prevent war, is meant to push diplomacy and nonviolent solutions to problems. But ultimately, it becomes part of the war machine when it's time to go to war, just the same as anything else. So yeah, I think you're right that institution, if it can be reformed, it would require a drastic reform. It would just require a drastic change of attitude of people getting sincerely saying, you know, war is a bad thing, and we should actually conduct ourselves in ways where we try to avoid war at all costs, and we actually behave that way instead of saying that's what we believe and then acting in another way. You know, I actually agree with you. I mean, that, like I've said, the most difficult part for me, as a huge fan of Barack Obama, as someone who voted for him twice, and those are still the two proudest votes I've ever cast in my life, but by far the most difficult part of him and his presidency to reconcile, the most difficult part to face and deal with, is the war, is the use of the military, the drone strikes, the execution of the so-called war on terror, which in practice he was, I would say he's probably better, but not all that much better, not all that much different than George W. Bush was. And that's a bitter pill to swallow, you know, but it's something that I think we have to face up to, and something that we have to hold future presidents accountable for, especially if they are, quote unquote, on our side. If we get a Democratic president and they start moving in this direction, I think we as the voters, as the people, need to be responsible to hold them accountable to that, to raise our voices, to push them in the other direction and say, actually, no, we're not okay with this. We didn't elect you to do this. You can't just do this. Because, yeah, that's by far the most difficult part of the Obama administration and the Obama legacy for me, is the military legacy. Next, from John Burnsy. Hey, Steve, here's my question. Back in the early 80s up here in Canada, there was a TV sketch show called The Frantics. One of the members was a puppeteer named Dan Redican. He ended up having a show in Canada's The Comedy Network called Puppets Who Kill, where he plays a man who runs a halfway house for puppet murderers. I don't know if you've ever seen the show, and its focus was definitely on the comic side, but it made me wonder if you were thinking about doing or have done a Steve and Stuffy video in a Twilight Zone style, where the line between who's the puppet and who's the master starts to blur. Again, I'm Humbilly on YouTube. Yeah, thank you, John /Humbilly, for the question. I've never seen that show, but the way you describe it, it sounds hilarious. And I feel like I should probably try to find it and try to watch it, because that sounds hilarious. I've never done a Steve and Stuffy episode exactly like that. I've never done one where, like, the line between the stuffed animals and flesh and blood people becomes blurred. But I have done a couple of episodes that have Twilight Zone influences. Like there was one I did a few years ago where I travel into a parallel universe and I meet the parallel universe versions of Stuffy and Toby Benson and Jack, and that I think has some sort of Twilight Zone influences. And the Halloween episode this year, coming up in a few weeks, will have some Twilight Zone ish, qualities to it. But I've never done that. I've never done, blurring the line between stuffed animal and person, because I think that's kind of built into the premise of the show anyway. One of the funny things about the show to me, and one of the fun things about writing it to me, is the inconsistency in the stuffed animal characters, where sometimes I write them and they are treated as though they're just people. They're just another kind of people. And then other times the fact that they are animals or stuffed animals suddenly becomes very important and very relevant. And it's very arbitrary. There's no rhyme or reason to, well, wait a minute, he's acting like a human here, but now he's acting like a stuffed animal here, or he's acting like a real animal. And it doesn't make any sense. And that to me is kind of fun, to sort of weave back and forth over that line. But yeah, but to answer the question, no, I've never specifically done an episode like that where, the line between who is a flesh and blood person and who is a stuffed animal have been blurred. But I have done and will do some sort of Twilight Zone inspired stuff from time to time. Next question is from the Woken Cthulhu Hugh, aka Neo Normie Poffit. Do you think YouTube should adopt the Facebook model, that people can't hide behind anonymity, as I think it would be a way to pretty much destroy the alt-right, as we in the UK have seen with Sargon of Akkad's Carl Benjamin being caught out by the Sunday Times and all his words exposed. There are many, like Undoomed, Tonkasol, No Bullshit, Aiden, Paladin, and Bering, who mock people from behind avatars. I've even had it myself from Closet Fascists, Suit Yourself, and Omegan. Yeah, in general, I think it's probably a good idea. There are instances where it's to people's benefit to not have to use their real name to be able to maintain a certain level of anonymity online. There are people who, for instance, are in difficult home situations, or maybe are gay or trans but haven't come out publicly or haven't come out to people in their real life, and they can go online and sort of be themselves and be insulated from the consequences of that. And I would hate to lose that. I would hate for people who need anonymity or who need the internet to be a little bit of a respite, or to have a little bit of a barrier around them for legitimate reasons. I would hate to rip that away from people. But there would be benefits. You're right. Forcing people to identify themselves and to stand behind their words, and to not be able to hide behind an avatar or hide behind an assumed name, and sort of punch people from their side and then pull back so that they can't get hit themselves, which, you're right, is done a lot, is definitely a method that abusive people use to be able to abuse with impunity. I definitely think it would help do away with that. But you know what? Enforcing community guidelines and just banning people who run channels that are built on abuse and harassment and promoting hate speech, that would be a way to solve that problem too. I mean, you could, at least as far as YouTube goes, or any social media platform, you could just get rid of people like Carl Benjamin or Bering or the other people you mentioned, and the other people you didn't mention, who have been doing the same act for years, who are just abusive, dishonest, bigoted trolls who pander to white male aggrievement and incite harassment against vulnerable people in order to promote themselves and attract viewership and attract audiences and attract Patreon support, things like that. Just enforce community guidelines and say that's not allowed. You can't use our platform to spread hate and abuse and intolerance, and just get the fuck out of here. And ban them from YouTube, ban them from Patreon, cut off their means of financial support. Just make it a lot more difficult to do that sort of thing and profit from it. And you could do that without forcing everybody to give up their anonymity. And that would be another way to solve the problem. I personally don't care how the problem is solved, as long as it's at least seriously addressed. And platforms like YouTube and Twitter and Facebook as well have done a really good job of paying lip service to it, and of making these really encouraging, heartfelt statements about, oh, we recognize the importance of having a safe platform where people can speak their minds in a way that is safe, and they won't have to worry about being attacked or abused on our platform, and there should be no place for bullying and hate speech and blah blah blah. They say all the right things, but then in practice they allow it to go on until they absolutely have no choice but to do something about it, usually when it is called out by a mainstream media outlet and it starts to make them look bad. So yeah, I don't really care if they solve the problem by forcing people to use their real names and cutting away their anonymity, or by just enforcing their community guidelines and saying, what you're doing is against the rules, so therefore you're out of here. Either way, I would just like to see a serious attempt to address the problem, because it does remain a problem even after all these years and all this time of people talking about it and drawing attention to it. John Brockman, is there anyone in the Steve and Stuffy cast that Toby Benson wouldn't have sex with? Yeah, I don't think he would have sex with me. I think Dr. Babylon mentioned that in a reply to your question on the Patreon post, John. Toby Benson would not have sex with me. I don't know if he would have sex with any human, to be honest. He told me once that he wasn't into bestiality. So take that however you will. Next is from Josa. Why is the Democrats so bad at the current political climate? The Republicans have seriously played the system to gain local and state majorities and dominate the federal level due to gerrymandering and a constitution that favors the rural over the populous coasts. That said, if the Democrats had a message that really appealed to the workers' middle class of America, they could easily rally enough people to overcome all of that and dominate enough of the U.S. to at least carry the traditional blue states and keep the federal government out of the hands of the religious right and the alt-right. But we see nothing of this. Are they inept or just as corrupt as the Republicans, just having a more progressive message and not wanting to upset the status quo? I was thinking about this question earlier, and I think in a way some of what you're talking about is it's the Bill Clinton syndrome, and I'll explain what that means. In the 90s, Bill Clinton was elected president and re-elected president, and had what I think most people today would describe as a fairly successful presidential administration. Not perfect by any means, and certainly with some problems, and certainly some problems with Clinton personally. But as a president, on the whole, he was pretty good, and he had a pretty good administration. And one of the things that Bill Clinton did to win his elections and to maintain his popularity and to accomplish things in terms of legislation and policy throughout his presidency is he did what they called triangulation, where he would find the thing that the most people on the left and the right could agree on, and he would go for that. He would try to find consensus and try to find things that people on the left would support. It might not be everything they wanted, but they would think it was progress. People on the right might be opposed to it, but wouldn't be so opposed to it that they would fight tooth and nail to stop it. And some of them would actually think it was reasonable and would support it. And that was how Clinton governed, and that was how Clinton campaigned. And in doing that, he attracted the support of a lot of people who were independents and a lot of people who were moderate Republicans. And unfortunately, that is still, I think, the mindset of a lot of Democratic politicians, especially at the federal level. Senators and even members of Congress, although they serve smaller constituencies, and I don't think it's as big of a problem. And presidential candidates, definitely. They think, okay, I'll run as a Democrat, but I have to have a campaign and I have to have policies that will be acceptable to some Republicans. And what they don't realize is that the Republican Party has moved so far to the right and has embraced the fringe of the right wing so robustly that if a Democrat now tries to appeal to a Republican voter or appeals to the Republican base or even tries to appeal to moderate Republicans, everything has moved so far to the right that if a Democrat tries to do that, they will alienate people on the left. They will alienate people on their own side. And yet they still try to do it. they still try to split the difference and run down the center and say, well, the people on the left are going to vote for me, and I need the people on the right to vote for me too. And they lose so many people on the left, either to other candidates or people who just throw up their hands and say, I'm not voting for them. I'm just not voting for anybody. I can't vote for, they're too much of a centrist. I'm not voting for them. That Democrats end up losing races that they might otherwise win if they had just appealed more honestly and more unapologetically to people on the left, to people who are members of their party, to people who want to see a left-leaning progressive candidate in office and who would turn out to vote for such a candidate. I think that's really one of the problems, is that they're still in this mindset of, well, yeah, we have to appeal to the left, but we have to appeal to the right too. They don't realize that if they motivated enough people on the left, if they got out the vote on their side, they would win way more elections than they would lose, and they wouldn't need a single Republican vote. Trying to appeal to the Republicans at this point, to me, is a complete waste of time. Any Democrat who worries about saying a certain thing or voting a certain way or taking a particular action or supporting a particular policy because it might alienate Republicans in their state is just wasting their time. That is not a viable way to win elections anymore. It might have worked in the 90s with Bill Clinton. It does not work now. When Republicans were running candidates like George H.W. Bush and Bob Dole, who were fairly moderate candidates, certainly on the right, but fairly moderate, Democrats could get away with campaigning in the way Bill Clinton did. But today, I don't think you can do it. I think the Republican Party has gone far, far too far to the right, and a Democrat, even a centrist or sort of liberal, center-left Democrat, trying to appeal to people on the right is just a waste of time. You're going to end up losing votes on your side that you actually need to win. So I think that's a lot of it. I think the Democrats are just in a very outdated, outmoded mindset where they think they have to go down the center in order to win. They don't. I think they have a majority, potentially, of not just registered Democrats, but left-leaning people in this country who are willing to go out and vote for the right candidate. They need to mobilize those people. And to hell with the right. To hell. If people are still supporting Trump at this point, they're not going to vote for you if you have a D after your name. I'm sorry. It's just not going to happen. You are wasting your time trying to court those voters. Court the voters who are already sympathetic to your side and want someone to vote for. And if they did that, I think you're right. If they did that, I think they would win a lot more than they are, and they would have a lot more power and influence than they do. And I really wish they would start doing that. Next, from Matthew Rick. I got a text message, presidential alert today. What do you think of the ability that Trump now has to forcibly text everyone in the United States? I think that it says an awful lot about the kind of president Trump is and the kind of man Trump is and the way we all perceive Trump, that this was an issue at all. If a more dependable, sensible, reasonable person, a more competent, trustworthy person, a more stable person was in the White House right now, I don't think this would have been an issue at all. I think people would have looked at this as, well, this is just like an extension of the emergency broadcast system. This is a way for the president to send out a mass message in case of an emergency that can alert the public to things that they need to know in a timely way that will be able to reach as many people as possible. I think it's a really good idea, right? The only problem is that it is now in the hands of Donald Trump. And I agree that is a problem. But the problem is that he's the president. The problem isn't, oh no, now there's presidential alerts and Trump can text everybody. The problem is that Trump is the president. If a reliable person was the president, it wouldn't be a problem. The problem is that he's the president, and he shouldn't be. And in his hands, all of the normal tools of the presidency are potentially dangerous weapons, because he's an ignoramus and he's dangerously incompetent, and he's being surrounded and insulated by people who are dedicated to protecting him and protecting their interests and protecting particularly his signing hand so he can sign the bills that they pass. And they don't worry about anything else. Everything else is secondary. That's the problem. It's not necessarily the presidential alert itself. In and of itself, I don't think that's a terrible idea, actually. I think it's in line with other forms of communication that the federal government is able to use when necessary. I think the problem is Trump. As always, the problem is that Trump is the man in that office. He should not be wielding that responsibility. He should not be in that position. And he is. And that's what's wrong. Not the existence of the presidential alert. Trump. Next, from Larry. Yeah, actually, no. I'm jumping the gun. Not Larry. It's Joe. Joe McClory. Just realized that this week was Ask Away, and it is 45 minutes before the show. My question is, how late do you check this? And am I too late to ask this question? Also, do you like meta humor? Well, to answer the first one, no. Obviously, you're not too late. I check the Patreon questions right up until I go on the air. Really, I think unless you post it with literally just a few minutes to go. Before I go live, I should be able to include it, because I get email notifications whenever any patron comments on a post or posts something to my feed. So I get notified constantly. And if you post it and there's any time at all for me to include it, I will. Just ask Larry. He likes to ask questions with like 5 minutes to go. I posted the thing on Monday. You've got all week, Larry. Posting questions with like 5 minutes before showtime. Unbelievable. Man yells at Larry. Yes, I do like meta humor, by the way. I do like meta humor. Hey, here's Larry. Larry Yellingman. You receive a presidential alert that is just a photo of Toad from the Mario games. What do you do? And Larry also asks, is there such a thing as a bad time for pizza? I think both of those questions are kind of the same thing, aren't they? I mean, when you get a presidential alert that is just a picture of Toad, I think that is probably a bad time for pizza. Because there are almost certainly things you should be worrying about at that time. If the president just texted you a picture of Toad, don't order pizza. Turn on the TV, turn on the radio, jump onto a news site, get on Twitter, figure out what is going on. See if it's anything you need to stop and worry about. Once you've confirmed that the world is not ending, that there aren't missiles en route, yeah, then sure, order a pizza. Who doesn't love a nice pizza? But, when you get the Toad picture, it might be time to stop. Say, you know what, I'll order pizza in a second. Don't open the Domino's app on your phone yet. Check the news and see what else is going on. Did anybody else get a Toad picture? What the hell does that mean? And once you verify that it's okay, then you can order the pizza. But in that case, that might be a time where where pizza is not maybe the best thing in that moment. Okay, that's enough. I've been talking to the patrons this whole time. Let's talk to some of the folks in the live chat. Hi, everybody. Yes, man yells at Larry. I'm going to be on Larry's show again soon, I think. In another week or so we're going to record. Isn't that right, Larry? I've been a guest on Larry's podcast, the excellent Man Yells at News podcast, for anyone who doesn't know, a couple of times, and it's always a great fun. So I'm looking forward to that. Larry's a cool guy, and I hope he appreciates that I don't mean nothing when I yell at him like that. It's out of love and very, very deeply held resentment. Okay, the 11th. Yes, I will be recording with Larry on the 11th for the podcast. And Radical Bacon says, what if the world is ending and you order pizza anyway? I mean, well, you know what? If you know the world is ending and there's nothing you can do about it, fuck, order a pizza, right? I mean, aren't there people on death row order pizza for their last meal sometime, don't they? I mean, just if there's a nice pizza joint in your town or a pizza that you really like, yeah, the world's ending, order a pizza. Hope that the news hasn't reached the pizza place yet, and they'll still make you a pizza instead of rushing home to be with their families. It's worth a shot. Yes, Larry, it is weird that you're blushing right now. No, it's not. I don't want to kink shame. I mean, if this is what does it for you, then I think that's great. And more power to you. Do whatever makes you happy, man. Whatever makes you happy. It's fine. Oh, God. I see Bruce's question. I want to get to Aid Trance first. Aid Trance says, do you have an opinion of the Borg potentially showing up in Series 2 of Discovery? It all depends on the story. I mean, I'm not such a canon hawk that I would be like, but they don't know who the Borg are yet. You know what I mean? If it's a really good story, I don't care. If they can put the Borg in Season 2 of Discovery and it works in that story and it's good and it's exciting and it's fun and it's whatever, I'm completely okay with that. I don't care. I care more about a good story than I care about, but, you're not supposed to find the Borg until Season 2 of Next Generation. Yeah, all right, you're right. But if they justify it with the story, then I'm fine with it. I'm completely fine with it. I was fine with the Borg showing up in Enterprise. I actually thought the Borg episode of Enterprise was better than any Borg episode on Voyager. I thought it was probably the best thing that they had done with the Borg and since First Contact. You know, I thought it was really, really good. That's why when I did that Trek Actually video about the Borg and Enterprise was not one of the suspects, when I was asking, you know, who ruined the Borg, a lot of people left comments saying, what about Enterprise? What about Enterprise? And I didn't list them as a suspect because, honestly, I don't think they are one. I don't think Enterprise ruined the Borg. If anything, I think they rehabilitated them a little bit with their one Borg episode. And then Bruce Bartep says, if the U.S. is so war-focused, how come you keep losing? Ouch! Damn! Because we suck. Because we suck. And we deserve it. We deserve to lose. We're a country with some really great people, but we're governed by a lot of really shitty people. And I think we have a couple of ass kickings coming, don't you think? I mean, you know, not the we reap what we sow, in a sense, don't we? I mean, that's not the patriotic thing to say, but shit. And we pick the wrong wars. We pick wars that we don't need to fight. We pick wars that we think are just to show off, just to as fucking. I remember, I'll never forget, after 9/11. Actually, it was after the invasion of Iraq. And then a few months after that, when people started to realize, like, wait a minute, maybe this war is being conducted on false pretenses. Maybe we didn't need to do this. Maybe this is a bad idea. And it came out a few years after the invasion, that the intelligence was flawed, that the justifications for the invasion were invalidated. And I remember Dennis Miller on the radio saying, well, I think that after 9/11, we just needed to invade somewhere in that part of the world to remind everybody that we were the big dog, to show our wares, to let everybody know that we weren't to be messed with. And I thought, there it is. That in a nutshell is the problem with the American attitude, and why so much of the rest of the world thinks of us in such horrible terms. Because that's our fucking attitude. Maybe even if we did invade a country with no actual reason. I mean, we had to invade somewhere, right? We had to start a war with somebody after 9/11, just to remind everybody that we're the one that we're still on top. It's reasonable that we invaded some country that we had no reason to invade, right? Because we're America, and it's generally the same part of the world where the terrorists come from. So fuck. I mean, come on, we had to invade somewhere. I guess that's why, because we start wars like that. Yes, some random geek. I am going to talk to patrons in the live chat as well. Joe McClory says, how do you feel about Michael Moore? I have mixed feelings about him. Yeah, me too. I have extremely mixed feelings. I like him. I agree with him in a lot of things. I've liked some of his movies in the past, but I remember being at the Women's March and Michael Moore talking longer than any of the women. Michael Moore talking so long that he had to actually be asked to vacate the stage. Like, Michael Moore, I don't know what his allotted time was, but he went so far over his allotted time that Ashley Judd had to come out and kind of, give him the hook. And I think that kind of speaks to his mentality. I feel like he's the kind of guy who, even though I think I agree with him on a lot of things politically, he likes being the center of attention. He has this presumption that what he has to say is important and deserves to be heard and deserves to be listened to, even though, other people are saying similar things or things that are even more wise and insightful and pertinent than what he's saying. But he's the white guy who will take the stage at the Women's March and address that massive crowd and speak for way longer than any of the women did. That kind of, you know what I mean? It kind of rubbed me the wrong way. It was the sort of thing where when he walked out on stage, I was like, oh shit, it's Michael Moore, all right. And then like half an hour later, it's like, God damn, he's talking a while, isn't he? Nobody else talked this long. What the fuck? So yeah, that's my Michael Moore story. Well, Tim, you know, if I mean, not everybody liked the Borg Enterprise episode. I thought it was a good episode. John, no, I have not checked out 1494 yet, but I remember that, and I will get around to it at some point. I will at least give it a glance, but I haven't had a chance to yet. J. Dottify, Steve, do you like Noam Chomsky's lectures? I haven't seen very much. I haven't really read or watched much of Chomsky. I've seen a couple of his interviews, and I've seen little snippets of him here and there, but I can't honestly say that I have watched a full Chomsky lecture or read a Chomsky book, so I can't really comment. He seems generally like someone I would agree with for the most part. But no, I can't say that I have a very strongly held opinion of him, because I haven't engaged with his stuff all that much. Winston Walrus, in The Wrath of Khan, McCoy says, according to myth, the Earth was created in 6 days. Now watch out. Here comes Genesis. We'll do it for you in 6 minutes. Yeah. And then he gets really mad, and he calls Spock a green-blooded inhuman something, and Spock says, really, Doctor, you must learn to govern your emotions. They will be your undoing, which is one of my favorite moments of that whole movie. Yeah, Tim says he doesn't trust the Discovery people to make a good story. I mean, I guess it depends on what you thought of Discovery. As I've said before, I thought Discovery was pretty good the first season. I had certain problems with it, but overall I thought it was pretty good, and I enjoyed it, and I'm really looking forward to season 2. So I would trust the writers of Discovery with pretty much any part of the Star Trek universe that they wanted to take on, because even though I didn't think what they did was perfect, I thought it was. I certainly didn't think it was so bad that I would worry about them choosing to tell a particular story or focus on particular characters. But you know, it depends on, if you didn't like Discovery, obviously you would be reticent about them writing a Borg story because you didn't like what they did before. 255 AD question: should the Dems try to impeach Kavanaugh next time they have control of government, or is court packing a better option? No, I think they should try to impeach him. And I think one of the problems with the Democratic Party right now is that I doubt, even if there is a blue wave and they take majorities in Congress next month, I don't think they have the guts to do it, which is a real shame, because that's absolutely what they should do. And if Trump goes down, if Trump ends up getting impeached or deposed in some way, they should impeach Gorsuch too. I think they should invalidate as much of what he did during his presidency as possible. He should be viewed as an illegitimate president who never should have been there in the first place. And his nominees, certainly his lifetime nominees like Supreme Court justices, should be impeached and removed and replaced. Absolutely. I don't think they're going to do that, though. I think if Kavanaugh gets on, as looks likely, unfortunately, that he'll probably be there for a while. He'll probably be there for good. And should they impeach him? Absolutely they should. Will they? Probably not. I don't think they have the guts to do it. I think that's a shame. Oh, John Burns. Wow. Name 3 American wars that weren't fought on false pretenses. Jesus, that's a good... I mean, I guess, depending on how you look at it, you could say that pretty much any war is fought on false pretenses, because the way a war is sold to the public is almost never the real reason that it's being fought, right? I mean, I guess you could you say that even if I said the American Revolution, I mean, the premise of the American Revolution varies quite radically depending on which side of it you're on. And there are still, I think there are some historians today who say that actually it probably wasn't necessary for the colonies to go to war to break free from Britain, that they could have gotten much of what they wanted in other ways without, you know, turning to revolution. Maybe that's true, maybe that's not. I don't know, but that's a really good question. In a sense, is there such a thing as a war that is fought not on false pretenses on a certain level, because you sell it to the people? If you're the government and you're the one declaring the war, but you're almost never the one who actually has to fight it, the people, the public are the ones who fight the war, because they're the ones who either volunteer for the military or are drafted into the military. It's never the people who are in charge of the war who actually have to put themselves on the line and risk their own lives and their own health to fight it. It's always someone else. And those people have to be sold on it. Those people have to be told, oh no, this is a righteous cause. We're fighting for freedom. We're fighting for justice. We're fighting for the survival of our way of life. And that's not always true, is it? That's usually just a sales pitch. So no, you're right. I mean, maybe I can't name three. I guess the closest I could come to is, I would say, the American Revolution, maybe the American Civil War. But even then, the American Civil War was fought on some false pretenses, wasn't it? You know, I mean, from the side of the South, it was definitely waged on false pretenses, and from the side of the North, there were multiple competing reasons why that war was waged. And you know, it's easy to say, well, you know, the North was fighting to preserve the Union, or the North was fighting to end slavery, or the North was fighting for this or that, and that I think you could frame that convincingly as a war that was conducted on false pretenses. You know. Same thing with World War II even. I think World War II is considered by most people to be like a relatively just war, but American involvement, you know, we didn't really care all that much about what was happening in Europe until Japan attacked us. If we entered the war to retaliate against Japan, you know, we also retaliated against Europe, and Europe didn't attack us. I mean, I think it's good. It's good that we fought Hitler. It's good that we fought fascism. But you know, the pretense of, well, we were attacked, therefore we must go to war, I don't know if that quite holds water all the way, does it? You know, so yeah, it's a very interesting, very, very provocative question. Oh, Trance, what software do you use to edit your videos? I use Adobe Premiere Elements. I use that for everything now. I used to use a program called, God, it's been so long since I used it, I can't even remember what the fuck it's called. AVS Video Editor. I used to use a program called AVS Video Editor that is very inexpensive and very good just as a basic editor. But Premiere Elements is a lot better in a lot of ways and a lot easier to use. So I use Premiere Elements for pretty much everything now. I do use it for everything now. Darklight 523 says Michael Moore needed to leave them wanting more. Instead, he never pulled out. That's yeah. Nate Breidenball, do you think Trump will try to suspend the 2020 election? No, I don't. But if he did, it wouldn't shock me, and I don't think it should surprise anybody else. I mean, I think I said this before in this live stream, and somebody asked a question like this. Like, I don't necessarily expect it, but I think, given the way things have gone, we should prepare for stuff like that. Like, if Trump does come out one day and give a speech and say we can't have the elections in 2020. I think we shouldn't be caught off guard. You know, I feel kind of, I've been kind of chiding myself the last couple of days at how caught off guard I have been by the Kavanaugh thing. The shamelessness of it, the shamelessness of the behavior of the Republicans and their supporters, and in their unswerving effort to have this person, this lying, quite probable attempted rapist, confirmed to the Supreme Court, is despite everything I've seen in my life, despite everything I've said in videos, despite things that I've said to people like, hey, you know, don't be surprised. There's a part of me that is still kind of shocked by it, you know, by the brazenness of it, by the utter shamelessness of it. There's a part of me that watches what's happening right now and thinks, I can't believe this is fucking happening. And I know that I shouldn't be surprised. I know that everybody who is forcing this to happen right now is acting completely in character, and nobody is doing anything that we should not have expected them to do. And yet there's that lingering expectation of some kind of decency or some kind of procedural norm is going to kick in, and everybody's going to say, wait a minute, we can't do this. And that's just not going to happen, you know? You keep thinking, yeah, but the protesters, the women protesting in the hallways outside their offices, women who are sexual assault survivors going up to senators and saying, you can't do this. Like, that has to count for something, right? That has to do something. They can't just vote yes after that, can they? And of course they can. Of course they can. They don't give a shit. They don't give a shit. If they gave a shit, if they truly gave a shit, they wouldn't be doing what they're doing. But they don't. And even someone like me, who is fairly cynical when it comes to Republicans, who does not have much good for them at all, I honestly have to say I'm still a little bit taken aback by it. And then I scold myself for feeling that way. I think, how the fuck do you think they're supposed to act? Why are you surprised by this? But I am. You know, I see what's happening and I think, God, I just can't fucking believe this is happening. Some random geek says, are you ready for a revolution? I mean, I don't know. You know, it feels like we're careening ever more quickly toward that eventuality, doesn't it? Oh, Bruce, by the way, no, I haven't seen Wonder Woman yet. I'm sorry. And also, by the way, I just went ahead and just scrolled down to the bottom of the live chat. So if you asked a question a little bit further up and I skipped it, I apologize, because I tend to ramble on and I tend to soliloquize in response to questions. So it's easy to sort of get lost in the live chat. And if I scroll down to the bottom and you asked something that I missed, then I apologize. I'm not skipping your question on purpose. It just, it's tough to keep track of the chat and also keep talking at times. Let me answer one more question from the live chat, and then I will go and answer some questions from comments on the last episode, and then we'll come back and do a lightning round to wrap things up. So I just saw at the bottom, nobody listens says, how come shitlords are so bad at picking up themes in media? I mean, Fight Club, The Matrix, Alan Moore, the author is dead, I know, but there is such a thing of not getting a movie, isn't there? Oh yeah, I agree with you completely. It's weird. I was thinking the other day, like how weird it is that The Matrix, which was produced, as it turns out, by trans women, and was meant to be sort of their homage to kung fu movies and comic books and stuff like that. Like that movie has become the metaphor that was latched onto by all these men's rights douchebags. It's just weird that you're right. The author is dead. You don't have to read a movie in necessarily the way it was intended by the author, but at the same time, yeah, it's like, how can you miss the point that much? How can you be, and this is the one I always come back to because I'm a Star Trek nerd, but like, how can you be a Star Trek fan and just miss all of the overtly progressive political messaging that has been in that show from the very beginning? How can you be a right-wing Star Wars, or Star Wars also in a way, but Star Trek especially, because it's been blatantly political from the beginning? How can you miss the point of the thing that you supposedly love so much? How can you be a Star Trek fan and whine and complain about quote-unquote SJWs ruining Star Trek? Like, what fucking show are you watching? I mean, granted, the messages change and evolve as our culture changes and evolves over the years. And, a progressive show today isn't the same as a progressive show in the 60s. But relative to its climate, the show has always tried to be progressive, has always pushed for equality and inclusion and diversity at the very least. Like, how the fuck are you a right-wing Star Trek fan? And then you have the gall to complain about the fucking progressive politics in the new shows. Like, I just don't get that. How do you miss the point so completely? It's just like the people who say, apparently the thing they love about Superman is the fact that he punches people. I just don't fucking get that. You're entitled to read the character that way if you want. If that's what you like and that's what you're there for, and you just want to see Superman punch people, that's, I guess, okay, more power to you. But I don't get that. Like, I don't get how people go to that character and they watch a Superman movie or watch a Superman or read a Superman story and they get bored if he doesn't punch people. Like, what? How do you miss the point of this thing so completely. I don't know. Anyway, I'm going to answer some questions that were submitted by people who left comments on the last episode, and then I'm going to come back to the live chat and we'll do a lightning round to wrap things up. So if you have additional questions for me, or maybe if there's a question that you ask and I missed it for some reason and you want to ask it again, that's fine too. But I'll come back to the live chat in a few minutes and we will do a lightning round for the last 5 minutes or so to end to wrap up the show. So hold on to your questions for a few minutes, and I'll get back to them after I answer some more pre-submitted questions from the comment section of the last episode. The first question is from Corey Donaldson. Hi, Corey. Thanks for always asking such cool questions. Corey says, what is your opinion on asexual people and those who discriminate against them for not being interested in sex? Well, I think you could probably guess what my feeling is. I don't think there's anything wrong with someone being asexual. I don't think it doesn't warrant my approval or my disapproval. It's a way that people are, and they shouldn't be made to feel bad about it or feel guilty about it. And people who discriminate against them or bully them are no different, really, than people who bully people who have any other sexual orientation or who bully people for their gender identity or for any other part of their personality that is just the way they are. It's prejudice. It's discrimination. It's not fair. If someone is asexual, that's the way they are. And I think you are bound as a decent person to respect that and to not hold that against them or punish them for it. I think people who discriminate against asexual people or bully asexual people or mock asexual people for being asexual are assholes. Fuck them. It's not cool. Don't do it. Respect people. Respect people's identities. Respect how people are. You know, it's sad that you still have to say it, but I mean, if you're against discrimination about any kind of natural characteristic that somebody has, if you say it's not okay to discriminate against someone for their sexual orientation, it's not okay to discriminate against somebody for being gay or for being bisexual, then why would it be okay to discriminate against someone for being asexual? It shouldn't be. It's not. It's not okay. So yeah, that's how I feel about it. I think hopefully that goes without saying. But just in case, people who are asexual deserve respect and are entitled to it the same as anybody else. And people who make fun of them or bully them because of their asexuality are assholes and they should go fuck themselves. Next, the Ghost of Sabotage. Are there any episodes you like in Star Trek Voyager? Okay, fair question. Fair question. I mean, I think I've mentioned a couple times in the Trek Actually videos that I don't hate Star Trek Voyager. It's my least favorite of the shows, but it's not like I lie awake at night seething in anger over it. I mean, there are some episodes of it that I do really enjoy. I think I've mentioned the episode The Thaw a couple of times that I think is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Voyager episodes. The one where Michael McKean plays the clown, who is sort of the embodiment of fear. I think Death Wish, the first Q episode on Voyager, is really good. I think I was thinking about the other a couple months ago, I guess, when I was writing the Borg episode of Trek Actually. Unity, the first sort of proper Borg episode that Voyager does, is a pretty good episode. You know, there are a few very, very strong episodes of Voyager that I like quite a lot, and most episodes of Voyager are okay. I think that's why it's my least favorite show, because it's mediocre. It occasionally rises above and produces something that's really, really great, but for the most part, it just kind of it aims at the middle and it hits the middle, and it's mostly just kind of unimpressive and pointless, but not a terrible way to pass an hour. You know, you can't think of anything else to watch. You want to watch something that probably won't be great, but probably won't be terrible. And it'll just be a nice way to spend an hour, especially if you're a Star Trek fan. And pop on an episode of Voyager. It'll probably be okay. Yeah, so I like quite a few episodes of it. It's just not my favorite series in the franchise. Matt Machado says, "Hi, Steve. My birthday is coming up on October 6th. How do you think I should celebrate? A, do what I did on my 21st birthday and get so drunk I lost all motor function and flopped around on the floor like a dead fish. B, eat a shit ton of birthday cake, I was thinking jalapeno flavor, and binge watch Steve Shives, Kevin Logan, and Christy Winters videos. C, hide in the corner and cry in despair over lost youth and eventual old age and death. D, all of the above. Well, if you're going to do all of the above, order is very important. Don't do the drunk thing first. Do the drunk thing last. That way you get to enjoy the cake and enjoy the videos, you know, and then you're lucid when you're crying and you're trapped in your existential crisis about looming old age and death, right? And you can experience that with the fullness of emotion that I think it deserves. And then you get drunk to sort of drown it all. So do the drunk thing last. If you're going to do all of the above, do the drunk thing last. Don't do the drunk thing first, because then, you know, you're not, first of all, you're not going to want cake if you're that drunk, or you're coming off of a bender like that the next morning. You're just not going to want it. And, you know, you're probably not going to be paying attention to the videos. I mean, Kevin and Christy are going to be making awesome points, and you're just going to be having a headache, like, you know, and maybe you'll watch a Steve and Stuffy video and you'll miss most of the best jokes, you know, because you'll be focused on your pounding headache. And, you know, I mean, you're in no fit state to feel anguish about your impending death then. Like, it's just going to make it all worse. So do the drunk thing last, man. If you're going to do all of the above, put it in the right order. That's all I'm saying. Priorities. You know, you're a grown-up now. You're an adult. It's time to take responsibility and time to do things right. So get blind fucking drunk where you can't even move last. Do that last, please. And happy birthday. Next is from Patalia Svizera. Why you ignore demon exorcism examples. I don't think I ignore demon exorcism examples. I just think demon exorcism is horseshit. I think that people who claim to have had demons exorcised are either sincerely mistaken about what is happening to them, or deluded in some way, or are committing willful fraud. You know, it's the same thing when a Pentecostal starts speaking in tongues. Maybe they're not willfully lying. Maybe they're not intentionally making it up and putting on an act. Maybe they actually think there's something happening there. They're under some kind of delusion. But I don't think they're actually speaking with the voice of the Holy Spirit. And I don't think that people who claim that they are possessed by demons and then have it exorcised by Bob Larson or something, I don't think that's what's really happening. And whether it is a willful act of fraud on the part of everyone involved, or they are just honestly deluded and think they are doing something that they're not doing, either way, I don't think that's what's happening. So I don't ignore demon exorcism. I just don't think that they are evidence of anything other than the gullibility of some people. Next question from Sir Kittalot. Hey, Steve, if meat were synthetically grown instead of being sourced from animals, would you switch back? Yes, I think I would. I think if meat came grown in a lab instead of cut from a living animal, I think that would pretty much solve my ethical problem. Assuming, of course, that the meat was also healthy and safe to eat and affordable. Yes, I would love to try lab-grown meat. I think that's something that hopefully I will see in some form in my lifetime, and I would love to try it. Yeah, I think if it doesn't come from a living creature, if it's lab grown, where it's grown in a test tube or something, I certainly have no ethical objection to it, and I would definitely try it. Absolutely. And last question from Ahoy Erno. How often do you watch old Steve and Stuffy videos, and which is your favorite episode? I love when people ask about Steve and Stuffy. It's my favorite show that I do, and I think it doesn't get nearly as many views and nearly as much attention as I wish it did. So I thank you very much for asking the Steve and Stuffy question. I don't watch old episodes very often, to answer the question. I watch them every once in a while, but as a rule, I don't watch them all that often. And that's usually because I don't have time, and I'm more interested in working on the new one than going back and watching the old one. But yeah, I do have favorite episodes. I mentioned already the parallel universe episode where my character crosses into a parallel universe where everything is mirror imaged, and I get to meet the mirror image versions of Stuffy and Toby Benson and Jack. I thought that was a good episode. many years ago, I guess 5 or 6 years ago now, I did a 9/11 truth episode where my character briefly becomes a 9/11 truther and gets into an argument with Stuffy about it. That was a good one. There's an episode where my character briefly converts to Islam after having a copy of the Quran fall on my head. That turned out to be a really good episode. There was one where, my Gamergate episode where I moved everything from video games to Star Trek, and it was about ethics in Star Trek journalism. And that's the episode. Actually, that's the episode where I put this photograph of Commander Riker in my pocket to use as a punchline at the end of the video, where I tearfully look at the photo of Riker and I say, "I won't let them stain you." And then I decided to just keep it in my wallet. So I carry this photograph of Commander Riker in my wallet for real, like every day. And I put it there as a gag for the end of a video so I could pull it out of my wallet on camera. And I just said, fuck it. I just left it there. So that turned out, that was a good episode too. And the Rashomon episode, Steve and Stuffy get their story straight, where my coffee mug is broken and they each have their own versions of what happened. That has become one of my favorites too. So yeah, I have favorite episodes. I don't know if I have a single favorite episode of all of them. It's like asking someone to choose like their favorite kid. But I definitely have favorites of the episodes that I have done. Actually, the last couple of episodes have been pretty good too, I thought. I really am relatively happy with how the Joff storyline came out. They're looking back now that Joff is gone for a while. He might come back at some point. But now that Joff is out of the picture, there are things looking back that I kind of wish I had done while he was here, while the character was there. But overall, I think that storyline turned out pretty well. It had a nice mix of funny stuff and political stuff. So I think it turned out pretty well. Okay, here we are at the end of the show, and we're gonna do a little something now in the next 5 minutes that you might have heard of. It's a little something I like to call
the lightning round. Rapid fire questions, glib and adequate answers.
Wow, and I did it in a way that the introduction actually made sense, so that playing the sound clip wasn't just completely redundant. Yay me. I'm so good at this. Okay, so you know the deal. I will start the timer at 5 minutes. It will count down, and over the next 5 minutes, everybody in the live chat, when you have questions to ask, just drop them in. I will answer as many questions as I possibly can in the next 5 minutes, and I'll probably answer a few at the end too, because honestly, it's like I said last time. It's like whose line is it anyway? The rules are made up and the points don't matter. But anyway, let's start the timer and let's get started with the lightning round. So start posting your questions. We got 5 minutes. Let's see what we got. Okay. Joe McClory, is it too early to really rank Discovery against the finished Star Treks? It is too early to rank Discovery against the finished Star Treks, but do you think it has the strongest season 1? I don't know. I think Deep Space Nine season 1 was pretty damn strong. I don't know if I would say Discovery has the strongest season 1, but it did have, relatively speaking, compared to other shows, it did have a very strong season 1. Adam Click. Hi there, Steve. Been a while. How are you? Oh, I'm fine. Good. I hope you're well as well. Opinions on the sudden popularity. Rock and Robin said that. Sorry. Hi, been a while. Hi, Robin. Sorry. Adam Click. Opinions on the sudden popularity of Bowsette. I didn't even know what or who Bowsette was until this sudden popularity of it. So I really have no idea. I'm not involved or pay much attention to gamer stuff. So it's all indecipherable to me. Let me see. Oh, Alice Ashton, IBM or Mac for video and audio editing and recording? I use IBM. I use a PC. I've never owned a Mac, but I've used it in times before. So I can't really tell. I don't really know a difference or have a preference. I've always had a PC, so that's all I know. Joey Jojo, what opinion would you have on furry art of Toby Benson and Jack? I would love it. I would welcome furry art of Toby Benson and Jack. Some random geek asks, is anybody else ready for the revolution in the live chat? Some random geek is going to start a revolution. A Trance, your opinion on the legalization of cannabis, medicinal and recreational. I have no problem legalizing it at all. I think it should be, I think we should treat it like alcohol. So I am not against it at all. Bruce Bartup, how will we end Trump? I have no idea. Hopefully, however we do it, it's soon. I would love for Democrats to take control of Congress in the midterms and impeach him, but that's wishful thinking. I don't think that's actually going to happen. I think the most likely scenario is he finishes out his term and he loses re-election. Sir Kidalot, hey Steve, why do you hate truckers so? It's a personal grudge because I used to work at a truck stop, and not all truckers, certainly. Many of the truckers who came in were lovely people, but some of them were just the biggest assholes you could possibly imagine. And I guess it's just residual resentment and a personal grudge. And I just don't like driving on the highway with a bunch of trucks. I think there are probably better ways to do that. But no, it's not fair. I shouldn't hate truckers. I mean, I should hate people who ride motorcycles. Oh, Dustin Furnace. If animals get slaughtered regardless, how is letting meat go to waste more ethical than just eating it? That is exactly what I used to tell myself when I would eat meat. And I don't know if there really is. I guess the idea is, well, if you buy the meat, then you're contributing to the demand for more meat. Therefore, you're contributing to a system that, you know, raises and slaughters animals. Dorian Sapiens, is Joff based on a specific person or a generic type? He's not based on any specific person. He's more of a type. There's a little bit of Ben Shapiro in him, but he's not like he's not meant to be Ben Shapiro. It's just that type, you know. He's the sort of alt-right or alt-right adjacent internet right-wing sexist know-it-all dipshit. Nate Breidenbaugh, did you see Disenchantment? What did you think? No, I have not. I have not watched Disenchantment. Yeah, exercising demons. Yeah, get him to do push-ups. Radical Bacon. I think that was a Robin Williams joke. I think. Princess Caroline, a pile of steaming hot crap or a minute with Brett Kavanaugh? The crap, please. The crap. Rock and Rob 210. Steve, can you shout out the San Antonio Clubhouse for those that may not remember? I don't remember that either. Is that something I should know about, the San Antonio Clubhouse? Shout out to the San Antonio Clubhouse, whatever that is, unless that turns out to be something horrible, in which case, no shout out to the San Antonio Clubhouse. I have no idea what that is. Radical Bacon, how will I celebrate the hiatus of Return of Kings? By doing what I've done with Return of Kings up to this point and just continuing to ignore it and pretend that it doesn't exist, because it's a shitty site for shitty people. Okay, that's time for the lightning round, but as you can tell, I've been super slow getting to questions in the chat, so I will continue to answer the questions that are in the chat for a few more minutes, because as I said, it doesn't matter. Oh, Tony Blakeway, I'm hoping to meet Aaron Ra next week. Any messages for the big? That's right, Aaron is in London. He's in the UK, isn't he? Just tell him I said hi. Tell him I think he's awesome. And it's been a few years since we've seen each other, but, you know, just tell him hello for me. It's weird me in the United States telling someone in another country, hey, when you see Aaron, tell him hello for me. But yeah, if you remember, tell him I said hi, and I think he's great. John Burns, have you seen the TV series Dark Matter? And if so, any thoughts? No, I haven't seen it. Bruce Bartup, is hate speech opposed by love speech? And if so, what would that be like? I don't know. I guess love speech would be just being nice to people, you know, and being supportive to people. Samuel Sturgill, hi Steve, I know you are often ripping on God for being a mass murderer, but I hear that almost all gods were just like that. What do you think? Yeah, you're right. I don't think we should single out one god for being a mass murderer when they're all jerks, right? I mean, why should we shouldn't pick on one particular god when they're all like that. We should just give them all the finger, right? Princess Caroline, do you think Kavanaugh had to suck Trump off? I don't want to know these things. No, he doesn't have to suck him off. He has to get him off. He has to make sure that he rules in his favor when he is indicted. Hey, can you indict a president? Supreme Court? And the Supreme Court says, no, of course not. And Brett Kavanaugh rules Trump's way, and Trump gives him the little thumbs up. He's like, yeah, good job, Brett. That's why I gave him the job. That's why I nominated him, so he would protect me. Yeah, that's it. So no, he doesn't have to suck him off yet. That's coming later. Adam Click, favorite anime. Cowboy Bebop, I guess. I get the feeling Cowboy Bebop is sort of the anime lightweight fans' favorite anime. It's sort of like the entry-level anime. I remember I used to date a girl who was big into anime, and I watched a bunch of stuff with her. And honestly, the only one that I have any real memory of is Cowboy Bebop. The rest of them just run together. And I remember enjoying a lot of them. I didn't think any of them were terrible, but the only one I can even remember the title of, let alone significant parts of the story, is Cowboy Bebop. That show has stayed with me ever since the first time I saw it. So I would have to say that is definitely my favorite. Sir Kittalot, Steve, would it be ethical for someone to go back in time to assassinate Trump? I don't know if it would be ethical to go back and do it on purpose, but if you get thrown back in time, say 20, 30, 40 years, and you're there anyway, couldn't hurt, right? Joe McClory, have you read The Coming Storm or Fear? Do you plan on it? No, I have not read either of those. I don't really, no, I probably won't read them. I honestly probably won't read them. I mean, I'm glad that they exist. Like, I'm glad that Bob Woodward wrote a book about Trump, but I don't plan on reading it. Manifold, have you considered being more active in live hangouts and debates with other channels like the Non Sequitur Show? No. I'm not really interested in debates. I'm not really interested in, clusterfuck live streams with a bunch of other people yelling at each other, talking over each other. And I don't really have time to do a lot of that in general. I'm working on my own stuff most of the time. And the times when I do have a chance to go on somebody's podcast or do a collaboration with somebody or do a hangout with somebody, which I do occasionally, I pick my spots. And I know I'm certainly not interested in going on like a live stream to debate somebody or get into an argument with somebody. That just doesn't appeal to me at all. And I've never watched the Non Sequitur Show, so I don't know what their deal is. Princess Caroline, is Trump really as stupid as he seems? Well, I mean, I don't know, but I can say that he certainly seems to be. Of all the Kavanaugh-style gang happy fun times you participated in college, what was your favorite? Yeah, I didn't do any of that. See, I was probably 5 years older than most of the other people in my class because I went to college after working for several years, so I was already like in my mid-20s when I started college. So I didn't do any of that. I had like people I was friendly with in college. I had like acquaintances and stuff, but almost nobody that I hung out with, and I never went to parties or anything like that. So, no, I didn't do any of that. No Devil's Triangle for me, which is just a drinking game, right? It's just a drinking game. Everybody knows that. Nobody listens, asked by someone who's not that deep into Star Trek. How would you feel about Discovery doing some more time travel and alternate universes shenanigans like DC Comics? I'm not opposed to that, but I mean, in general, I prefer things to be relatively straightforward. I think Discovery would be best served by focusing on telling its own stories and building up its own world, so to speak, in its series with its own characters and its own stories than doing time travel and crossovers and stuff like that. I would rather they go the other way. But again, it's all about story. If they come up with a really good story and it's fun and it's exciting and it's compelling, then I say go for it. It's all about the story, and it's all about if they pull it off. There's nothing. Roger Ebert said, and I believe this to be true, it's not what a movie is about, it's how it is about it. There's no premise that you can't pull off and make into something good if you know what to do, if you have a compelling enough angle on it, if you are talented enough, and you do it in a way that is just good, So yeah, could Discovery do something like that? Absolutely. Would that be my advice to them? No, it wouldn't. But I think the show is being made by talented people. I think there's no reason they couldn't if they had a good idea. Sir Kittalot, what about robot trucks like in Logan? That's what I'm talking about. I would love to see robot trucks like in Logan. I think that would be great. Let's have robot trucks. John Burns, thoughts on the remake of Stephen King's The Stand being made? I'm skeptical because I really like the miniseries of The Stand from the 90s. But again, like I just said about Discovery, it depends on the story. There's no reason why they can't pull it off. Princess Caroline, my cat hates meat-based food and loves cereal-based food. Does that make my cat a vegetarian? I guess so, yeah. I guess so. A Trance, favorite planet besides Earth? That would be Saturn. I named my dog as a child Saturn Star because Saturn was my favorite planet. She was my favorite dog. I love my dog. Oh yeah, Joe says finished BoJack yet? Favorite episode? Yeah, we finished BoJack. I guess the weekend after the last live stream, I think. And favorite episode? God, what was my favorite? Oh, you know the either the underwater episode where it's like silent for most of it because he's underwater. I just thought that whole thing was so cool, and that's such a great idea. I thought that was a fantastic episode. And also the episode where he gives his mom's eulogy at his mom's funeral. I thought that was fantastic too. Those are probably my two favorite episodes. Yeah. Adam Click. I'd love to see you collab with Peter Coffin. I would love to do something with Peter. I think Peter's great as well. Absolutely. Yeah, I know. I have a live stream coming up with Christy Winters this weekend on Sunday actually, and me and Christy do hangouts together from time to time, and I love doing those. I've done hangouts with Kevin Logan a couple of times, and I've been on podcasts with people before. So I mean, I'm not like opposed to that, but it's just a matter of fitting it into my schedule, and it's a matter of if it's something that that I think is worth doing. And yeah, if Peter ever wanted to collaborate on something, I would love to try and make that happen because I agree. I think Peter's terrific. Princess Caroline, chick tract or Trump executive order? I mean, what's the fucking difference at this point? Chick tract has better spelling. Joe McClure, do you have any plans to do any live streams besides your normal ones? At some point in the near future, maybe in the next month or so, me and Jason are going to do a live stream about Star Trek and about the Ensign's log, where we'll answer questions about the show or talk Star Trek for however long. We don't have a date set for that specifically, but sometime probably in the next month or two. We talked about it the last time we recorded our podcast, and we both definitely want to do that. So I'll do a live stream with Jason at some point, soon-ish, about Star Trek stuff. But other than that, there's nothing I have planned specifically. Alice, boxers or briefs? I've always been a briefs person. So there you go. Sir Kidalot, would you want to be reincarnated as a robot? Yeah, sure. Why not? Fuck it. I mean, I've already been a person, a flesh and blood person. I'll try a robot. Why not? Oh, Anthony Jenkins asked about my Star Trek fanfic. This is cool. Thank you. Anthony Jenkins says, when writing Stargazers, how many times during the writing process did you stop and ponder, is this true to X's character? I didn't really have to, because I think I know their characters pretty well. I mean, I've been watching Star Trek since I was a kid, and especially Next Generation. I feel like I have a pretty good ear for what Riker would sound like, or what Riker would say and do, Geordi, Beverly, etc., etc. So I never really had to stop and say, is this the kind of thing Riker would do, or is this the kind of thing Riker would say? And it's mostly Riker. I mean, Geordi has a lot to say in it, and the other characters each have their own little moments throughout it, but it's mostly a Riker story, and I feel like I have a pretty good handle on Riker. So no, there was never a time when I had to stop during writing it and say, Riker wouldn't say that, he would say this. But I'm glad that you think I got it right. Actually, I'm very humbled by a lot of the comments on that story, that people thought that I got the voices of the characters right. That really means a lot, because you know, a lot of fanfic doesn't really do that. A lot of fanfic doesn't capture the voices of the characters, and so if I was able to do that, that's wonderful, and I think that's a really great compliment, and I really appreciate it. Sergey Land, don't know if you addressed this already, but what are your thoughts on the aging population crisis in Japan and how should one go about solving it? That is way above my pay grade. I don't know. I don't know a lot about that issue, for one thing. I'm not really super familiar with the aging population problem in Japan, so I wouldn't even know where to start. I'm sorry. Rod Pruitt, have you ever done stand-up? Your stuff is brilliant, and I think it would translate well to live stage. What do you think? Well, thank you very much for the compliment. But no, I've never done stand-up. I've never really seriously thought about it. I'm not sure how well it would translate, to be honest. I'm glad that I mean, that's really nice that you say, you know, my stuff is brilliant and you think it would be good, but I don't know. I think I, as a writer and as a comic person specifically, I don't know if stand-up is the right medium. I think I'm good in conversation, and I'm good if I can write characters. You know, I feel like that's probably where my strength lies, especially if I'm trying to make people laugh. I don't know if just me on stage with a microphone telling jokes or telling stories is the best way to go, but I really appreciate the compliment. Oh, thank you, Princess Caroline. Yeah, my Picard I think that Picard death story, as you put it, really turned out well. I was quite pleased with it. Oh, some random geek. I'm questioning if I am cis male. Maybe I'm male-ish or cis-ish extra gender. Have you ever questioned your, I assume, cisness? Or no, I haven't. I've always felt comfortable and felt myself as a man, as a cis hetero man. I've never questioned it or had any kind of doubt. So, but what I am realizing, the more I talk to people, the more I get to know people from across the world, I'm realizing how many people do question it. That's something that's been really eye-opening to me, and that I think is great. That the number of people who are feeling like they're more at liberty now to question things like that, instead of just assuming like, well, you were born this way and that's the way you are, or this is what your parents said you were, therefore that's all you are. People who are saying, you know what, I've never felt like this is, I don't feel like this is what I am. Maybe I'm something else. Maybe I need to explore this and figure something out, you know? I think that's great. And it's been really, like I said, it's been really eye-opening to me how many people there are who have had those kinds of questions, or had that kind of, you know, had to examine it and think, hey, am I really? I always thought I was cis, but am I really? Maybe I'm not. You know, I think that's great. I think that's wonderful, and I wish people had more support for that kind of thing. Honestly, I wish the world wasn't such a shitty place to trans people or people who question their sexuality or their gender identity. But yeah, I honestly can say I've never really questioned it. I've always been sure and felt sure and felt comfortable as a cis hetero male. Joe McClure says, would you risk being downloaded into a robot if you were not sure if it would put you in the body or just a copy of your mind? Well, yeah, it would have to be me. I wouldn't want to be downloaded into a robot and then like have my body destroyed, because then I'm dead. You know, I would have to be assured that it's my mind, it's my consciousness that is being transferred, not just a copy. It's the same thing as the transporter problem. Yeah. I know how to solve overpopulation, space colonialism, space colonization, Sir Kittelot says. Yeah, go for it. Yeah, I'm sure that's going to come at some point. Bruce Bardup says, is profundity inevitably mystical rather than rational? That's a good question. That's a good question. I feel like it's probably something beyond just flat, cold rationality. Maybe not mystical, but maybe more in the sense of poetry. You know what I mean? Like there's something in poetry. There's things that the language does. There are feelings that language evokes in people through poetry that are not exactly rational. I don't know if you would call, maybe you could call them mystical. I'm not sure. But yeah, there's something ineffable, something difficult to describe. Something numinous that I think is part of it, that you can't necessarily describe in totally rational terms. I don't know if mystical is the best word for it, but yeah, something like that. Joe Raw. Well, John Burns says in the movie Solo, there's a robot who's very much in support of free robots and free rights. In the end, she gets uploaded into the Falcon. Sad end. Yeah, I guess if the robot wanted to be a free person and now they're just stuck in a ship, yeah, that is pretty sad. Joe Roth, what about giving speeches or lectures? Adding to Rod's question, yeah, I could see myself doing that. There's something about, I mean, if you're a stand-up comedian, then you're trying to make people laugh, you know. And I don't know if I would necessarily, but giving a speech, giving a lecture, as long as it's like, if I'm able to have something interesting to say, yeah, I could see myself doing that. I think I would be okay at that. Yeah, Princess Caroline says, if CBS decides to end the new Picard series, you should submit your story. It really pays homage to all the characters and Captain Picard as well. Well, that's nice. Thank you. Yeah, I don't think I'll submit it. But it's nice that people like it so much. John Brockman, any prominent atheists you still respect besides Aaron? Well, yeah, sure. I like Eli Bosnick. I don't think he's perfect. I think there are probably still things that Eli would say or do that I would, you know, think like, oh, don't do that. But for the most part, I think Eli is great. I think the whole, you know, the God Awful Movies crew, for the most part, are good guys, and I like them. I have no real serious quibbles with them. A lot of podcasters, you know, I mean, I love, I guess it depends on what your definition of prominent atheist is, because, you know, like I love Marissa McCool and Callie Wright and a lot of sort of progressive atheist secular podcasters and people like Alex Jules, who are not, has been trying to sort of inch away from the secular movement for a while now, but he still gets mentioned, you know, as a part of it. And I think Alex is great. Martin Hughes, the blogger from Barry Bray. I mean, none of they're not, I'm getting further and further away from prominent, unfortunately. They should all be super prominent. But yeah, there are definitely still people who are in the movement or involved in it, that I respect, that I like quite a bit. I mean, of the sort of so-called YouTube atheist Mount Rushmore type people that I may have been fans of up until a couple years ago, I think Aaron is probably the last man standing, unfortunately. A lot of them have sort of shown themselves to not be worthy of my respect or my support, sadly. But yeah, Aaron's definitely still there. Sir Kiddle, what you think about asexuals? I answered that question earlier. Sorry you missed it. I think asexuals are fine. I think there's nothing wrong with asexuals at all. I think it's, like I said in answering Corey Donaldson's question, it's another way to be, and asexuals deserve the same respect as any other orientation. And here is a super chat. Sorry it took me so damn long to get to, but here's a super chat from Wellington Smith. Why do you think so many people dislike your gentle hand when addressing people you disagree with? You refuse to go after certain people, and that's your choice. Why the hate for gentleness? Well, I thank you for the super chat, and thank you for the question. It's, you know, in certain situations, I don't think it's necessarily gentleness. I think it's just me deciding that certain people aren't worth speaking to or engaging with in any way. You know, I'm not trying to be gentle when I don't engage with people who are trolls or people who are, you know, who make hateful response videos toward me or toward other people. I'm not being gentle with them. I'm just treating them how I think they deserve to be treated, which is, I don't think they are serious people. I don't think they're engaging in good faith. So I don't engage with them. And maybe that gets read as gentleness because I'm not attacking more people by name. But to me, I don't view it as gentle. I view it as ignoring people who don't deserve to be taken seriously or acknowledged. And in other cases, I mean, gentle. See, here's the thing: gentleness is a good thing. Gentleness is something that I do think we need more of, but gentleness can't be extended to people who don't deserve it, or used in ways that gives aid and comfort to horrible people. You know, really, really bad people who hurt others, who perpetuate intolerance and ignorance and hatred. don't deserve gentleness. I don't think they deserve to be handled gently. I think they deserve to be put down, or to be banned from social media, or to be banished from the mainstream. I don't think they deserve to be coddled, or to be treated with civility, or to be treated with gentleness. I think they deserve to be removed from the public stage and thwarted from spreading their message. So if I appear gentle toward them because I don't attack them by name, that's not meant to be gentleness. That's meant to be just, you know, me just saying life's too fucking short to waste time fighting with you fuckers. I'm going to go over here and do something else that's actually interesting to me or of some use to somebody, and you can go do whatever the fuck you want. You know, that's what I'm doing. But if it comes across as gentleness in those situations, that's not what it's intended to be. But otherwise, I think it's just civility. It's just civility and decency, and not wanting to be a loudmouth, blowhard prick. And I agree, that is kind of an underappreciated thing on the internet, and that's a shame. Samuel Sturgill, does the stereotype of pro wrestling fans being a bunch of rednecks still exist? Yes, yes. It's probably less true than it has ever been, but yes, that stereotype still exists, and there are still plenty of wrestling fans who fit that stereotype, but there are also lots of wrestling fans, again, probably a larger percentage of the overall fan base than ever, that are not that. A lot of hipsters, actually. But yeah, so yeah, the stereotype still exists. It's never been quite fair. There have always been fans who don't fit that stereotype, but there have also always been lots of fans that do. But it's never been a quite accurate or fair stereotype. Damon White, no, I haven't, and I have no plans to read the Skeptic's Guidebook. Sir Kid a lot. I do check out. I do watch Sean's stuff from time to time. I agree. I like Sean a lot. I follow Sean on Twitter. Joe McClory, any notable atheists that are not really part of the movement that you are a big fan of, like Mark Maron, for example? Yeah, I like Mark. I think Mark Maron speaking of stand-up comedians, I think he's a hilarious stand-up comic. Yeah, probably. I'm sure there are others that I can't think of right now. But yeah. Sir Kidalot, do you think that people shouldn't be attacking them by name and such? No, I have no. If people want to attack others by name, I have no problem with somebody else doing it. It's just not. My way of dealing with people like that is to ignore them and to get on with my own business. If other people want to, like, you know, people like Christy Winters and Kevin Logan, who spend a lot of time doing shows where they call people out by name and they point out things that they've said and done and why these things are problems. I think that's a completely legitimate and necessary thing to do. As long as these people are going to be tolerated on social media platforms, I think it's necessary for some people to oppose them, to call them out, to draw attention to what they're doing and why it's not okay. Yeah, absolutely. But it's just not something that I feel drawn to do, and it's not something that I want this channel to be. I want this channel to be more creative than, you know, mired in that sort of drama. So I speak about things like that in general terms. I try to draw attention to the problem as a whole, but I don't want to get involved in person-to-person drama, because the thing is, with most of those people, if they even catch a hint that you're talking about them, even if you don't mention them by name, or you don't address yourself to them primarily, if they even get a hint that you're talking about them, or that they could somehow angle it into a response video against you, they will take full advantage of it. And for years, they made response videos to me when I almost never even mentioned their names. So I can only imagine the flood of bullshit, awful, abusive response videos and the hordes of their shitty commenters who would be coming into my channel if I actually did start making videos naming names and directing my, you know, my comments and my arguments toward a particular individual. And I'm just not interested in that. I think they're pieces of shit. I don't think they should have channels. I don't think they should be welcome on any legitimate mainstream social media platform. I think I've made my feelings about them and what they do quite clear. You know, and for the most part, I want to do my own thing and to do things that I think are important or interesting, and not waste time having an argument with people who are just bad faith trolls and bigots in the first place, who don't deserve to be acknowledged and argued with, who deserve to be banished. Yeah, exactly. Angry Aussie. Hi, Angry Aussie. Yeah, it sucks if you let other people define you because of drama. Exactly. That's it. People will try to get you to play their game. And their game, in the sense of the people that we're talking about, are people who want to start fights, who want to start arguments, who want to have conflicts that they can monetize, that they can leverage into content for their channel. And I'm just not at all interested in doing that. I'm not interested in helping them do it. I'm not interested in doing it myself. I'm not going to let them decide what kind of videos I make. You know, they can challenge me to debates all they want. They're not going to get anywhere because I'm not interested in doing it, and I don't owe them a second of my time. And it's just not something I want to do. I would rather make videos where I argue with stuffed animals. I'd rather make videos where I talk about Star Trek. I'd rather make political videos where I talk about topics that I think are actually relevant and important than get involved in a circle jerk with some bigoted asshole who has a YouTube channel and thinks he's a big shot and an important voice in the culture because he has a couple 100,000 followers on YouTube. You know, if you're a misogynist, racist, rape apologist piece of shit who incites harassment against other people, and that's how you generate your YouTube content, then fuck you. I have nothing to say to you. And I'm certainly not going to waste time on my channel responding to shit you say. I don't have the stomach for it or the patience for it, for one thing. And there are other people who are way better at it than I would be who are doing it anyway, like the aforementioned Christy Winters and Kevin Logan. And ContraPoints and Peter Coffin and lots of other people who engage in that sort of thing from time to time and respond to people personally or by name, and I think they do a way better job than I could. So let them do it, and the people they're responding to can fuck off. And Sean, yes, absolutely, and Sean as well. Anyway, yes, A-Tran says longest 5 minutes I've ever known. Yes, we're almost at the 2-hour point. So I'm going to wrap this up. Thank you. As I'm seeing people mention Penn and Teller, Penn on the Big Bang Theory. I don't watch Big Bang Theory. I watch Penn and Teller Fool Us. I think that's a great show. But no, I have not. I have never watched the Big Bang Theory, and I didn't see Penn. I didn't see Penn on. Oh, Teller on. Yeah, didn't know Teller could talk? Oh, Teller has such a great voice. Teller is so articulate. And so fascinating to listen to when he talks about magic. I think he, like Penn, is kind of a libertarian, so on politics I don't necessarily have much interest in what he has to say. But if you've ever seen him as like a talking head in a magic documentary or something, he's just, I could listen to him talk all day. He has an amazing voice, and he's incredibly knowledgeable about the history of magic and philosophy of magic and stuff like that. He's really, really cool as far as that goes. So yeah, Teller could definitely talk. And he's a brilliant performer as well. So anyway, that's it. I'm gonna wrap this up now. I could keep talking to you guys. I could keep talking to you guys all night. But okay, Wellington Smith, last one. Thoughts on Pop Culture Detective? I think Pop Culture Detective is great. I try to watch his stuff as it comes out, and I think a lot of his videos are really, really well done, well thought out, well presented, and something that I would like to aspire to whenever I do video essays of that kind. I think he's terrific. Okay, that's it. Thanks everybody for being with me. Thanks for sticking with me for the longer than usual show. I apologize to those of you who had to bail out because you had other shit to do. I'm gonna go do some other shit myself, as a matter of fact. So thanks everybody for watching. I want to remind you, as I always do at the end, that if you enjoy my videos, you can support me on Patreon by going to patreon.com/Steve Shives. Patrons get preferential treatment in terms of questions. I'll post a post on my Patreon feed at the beginning of the week when I'm doing an Ask Away stream, and you can post questions as comments there, and I'll make sure to answer all my patron questions first on the next episode of Ask Away. And there are some other things you can take advantage of as well if you're a patron. And also, I co-host a couple of podcasts. I co-host the Late Seating podcast and also the Ensign's Log podcast, which is a Star Trek themed comedy podcast. I co-host them both with the awesome, brilliant, hilarious Jason Harding, also known as Jason with a D, here on YouTube. And you can listen to all of the Let Me Listen podcast, and particularly our 2 shows at letmelistenpodcast.com. And you can also subscribe to them via RSS feed on the podcast app of your choice. And those links are in the description of this video. So if you've never checked out Late Seating, or you've never checked out the Ensign's Log, which has a new episode up today, I believe, you can check both of them out, and I highly recommend them both. And especially if you like the Star Trek stuff and you like Star Trek with a little bit of a comedic edge to it, check out the Ensign's Log, because it's a show that we really enjoy doing, and that hopefully you'll enjoy too. So that's it, everybody. Thanks for watching. I'll be back in 2 weeks to do another one of these. Thanks to everybody for sticking with me in the live chat, and I will see you all next time. Bye.